Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order this regularly scheduled Intergovernmental Relations Committee meeting. I'm the chair of the committee, Councilmember Johnson, and I'm joined today by a quorum of our committee members, Councilmember Warsame, Schrader, and Council President Bender. And we have before us 4 items today, 2 of which are consent items, so we'll go ahead and move those consent items first. The first item is the biennial budget process charter amendment, setting a public hearing for July 24th to consider this subject matter ordinance amending the city charter. The second item is local approval of special law. This is a passage of a resolution approving a law related to a tax increment financing district for the Upper Harbor Terminal Development. And we'll see if committee members have any questions or comments on those items. Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Mr. Ranieri, yes.
I just wanted to clarify that in the passage of the resolution and the RCA deals with a state requirement that you are approving the law we're going to file with the state, but the TIF district approval will come at a different time.
Exactly, yes.
So we're not approving the TIF district, we're approving the law for the TIF district.
Thanks for clarifying that for the public. That's helpful and for committee members. Our third item on the agenda today is a discussion item for World Refugee Day. Welcome.
Thank you, Committee Chair Johnson, committee members. My name is Michelle Rivera. I'm the Director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs within Neighborhood and Community Relations, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak in support of the city's resolution recognizing June 20th as World Refugee Day. First, I would like to mention that there are a couple of small changes in the resolution. I believe you may have those before you. It's in the second to last whereas on the first page, where the word less is struck out and replaced by fewer, and there's an additional word, current refugee cap of 30,000 individuals. So World Refugee Day was established in the year 2000 to recognize the 50th anniversary of the Convention on the Status of Refugees. A refugee is someone who has suffered or who has a well-founded fear of persecution on the basis of their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Refugees are resettled to the state of Minnesota through the assistance of one of 4 local organizations, the International Institute of Minnesota, Minnesota Council of Churches, Arrive Ministry, and Lutheran Social Services. And most of these organizations will be providing information about their work at the city's World Refugee Day celebration, which will take place tomorrow from 11 to 3 in City Hall. From October 2018 to June 2019, these organizations resettled a total of 521 people to the state of Minnesota, the largest number of resettled refugees being Congolese and Burmese individuals, followed by individuals from the former Soviet Union and Ethiopia. It's important to call attention to the fact that our United States government refugee program is currently resettling the fewest number of refugees in its history. For the latest fiscal year 2019, which goes from October 2018 to September 2019, the United States set a refugee ceiling of only 30,000 people. This is in line with the current presidential administration's annual reduction in refugee ceiling. As for fiscal year 2018, the ceiling was only 45,000 refugees. And keep in mind also that the ceiling is the maximum number. For 2018 fiscal year, the total number of people actually resettled was approximately 22,000, exactly 22,491 people. And these figures represent a radical departure from the last refugee ceiling of the last presidential administration, which was 110,000 people. To translate this into Minnesota terms, as I said, for fiscal year 2019, we've resettled 521 people. According to the Office of the State Refugee Coordinator, Rochelle King, our resettlement rate for fiscal year 2016 was 3,059 people. For 2017, it was 1,003, and for 2018, it's 723. So you can see that the numbers are decreasing, with each advancing year of the current administration. The World Refugee Day resolution before you calls on the administration to restore a refugee ceiling of at least 100,000 individuals. Refugees make important contributions to our society. A 2017 study by the Partnership for a New American Economy found that refugee households earned $77.2 billion in 2015, resulting in $6.4 billion in state and local taxes and $14.5 billion in federal taxes. Today's young refugees are tomorrow's workforce, civic leaders, and business owners. Refugees bring culture and wisdom of life experience and survival to this country, and refugees have among the highest naturalization rates of any immigrant category. A recent Department of Homeland Security report indicates that of adult refugees who obtained permanent resident status between the year 2000 and 2010, 60% naturalized or obtained U.S. citizenship within 6 years. The definition of a refugee, a person who has a well-founded fear of persecution on account of a protected ground, also applies to the many asylum seekers who come to the United States. Asylum applicants are also displaced people, as they come here because they cannot remain in their home countries. The most recent statistics available for 2017 indicate that over 250,000 asylum applications were presented in the U.S., with that being fairly evenly divided between U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services affirmative applications and defensive applications presented before an immigration court. So as far as countries of nationality for individuals filing affirmative applications, the primary countries of nationality include Venezuela, China, Guatemala, Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, India, Haiti, and Colombia for affirmative. For defensive, the main countries are El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Haiti, India, China, Ecuador, and Brazil. Many residents of the state of Minnesota have been impacted by the federal government's efforts to restrict the ability of people to apply for or extend their immigration benefits, including refugee status and asylum, and also temporary protected status and deferred enforced departure, to federal programs that allow people to remain in the United States and obtain employment authorization documents for 12 to 18 months due to war, natural disaster, or other humanitarian crisis. Temporary protected status, or TPS, for citizens of Somalia, which was renewed last summer, and after much anxiety in the Liberian community, deferred enforced departure for citizens of Liberia, which was extended this past March. These temporary programs, under which thousands of residents of the state of Minnesota reside in the U.S. for years, if not decades, are not a permanent solution. And I would briefly make mention of the American Dream and Promise Act, H.R. 6, which recently passed the House of Representatives and was received in the Senate early this month, which identifies a pathway to U.S. permanent residence for these individuals who have long residence, clean records, and in many cases, family relationships tying them to this country. The World Refugee Day resolution reaffirms the city's commitment to promote the safety, health, and well-being of individuals fleeing war, persecution, and torture, and commits the city to ensuring that refugees and other displaced persons find material, social, and legal protections in the city of Minneapolis, as these are ways to honor our commitment to being a welcoming city. This concludes my statement, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from committee members? I'll just note here, because this resolution deals with policy, that's why I'm bringing it forward as the author. Normally when we have symbolic resolutions, we have all council members on them. But I know that with this resolution, this is something every one of my colleagues is supportive of. And so I'd like the clerk to please add my colleagues here today as authors on this, and then hopefully we'll get that done on Friday as well with the rest of the council members, because I know this is a greatly appreciated work and a position that we all share and we're united in. So,
Thank you, Committee Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for authoring this resolution, and I would like to thank Director Rivera for all the hard work she's done and around this issue. You know, as a former refugee, this is a very important resolution, and it's a very difficult time, you know, across America and the Western world in terms of the way people feel about refugees. And the fact that we have the largest displaced and largest number of human beings seeking refuge anytime in the world, and we're closing our doors, it's a very difficult moment. So thank you for all the work you've done.
Yes,
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments on this? Not seeing any. So all those in favor of this amended resolution, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. That we will move on to item number 4, our federal, state, local legislative update. Mr. Ranieri.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, not much is happening at the Capitol these days. Legislature adjourned back in the end of May. We don't see very many interim hearings, but there are a couple things happening. The Legislative Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources started their process back in January, soliciting for proposals and projects. They have about $66 million to appropriate this year to recommend projects for that come from the Environmental Trust Fund, which I think comes from the lottery. They are now having hearings, and one of the projects is in the city, and that's from the Friends of the Lock and Dam. They're requesting some funds for some improvements down along the river. Their hearing is next week. What's interesting in this process, they go through a filtering process. Every proposal that's submitted is reviewed, but not every proposal is presented to the commission. So we should know in July which projects would be approved. The next item on the list of things that are happening is that the League of Cities will have their conference in Duluth next week, and also they will be starting, along with Metro Cities, their policy development process in July. And I know some council members are going to be sitting on some committees, and we're going to be working with some of those committees and cities on some issues like dealing with transportation, housing, and other issues. And the last one is we're going to be starting our process for next year on June 24th with a wrap-up of what happened with our legislative liaison team, as well as outlining the time frame and the process for submitting proposals, having them vetted, which the legislative liaison team and to the council and to this committee. The liaison team consists of representatives from all city departments, mayor's office, some council members, council offices, where we just discuss issues, go through the proposals, and come up with some ideas to recommend to the council. And that'll start next week. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any comments or questions from committee members? Not seeing any, I'll go ahead and move, receive and file of that update. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. And with no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned.